Welcome, Whispering Bee family. Today, we are going to listen to a powerful story of betrayal, hidden suffering, and a father's relentless fight to save his daughters from a life they never deserved. What began as a perfect marriage slowly unravels into a nightmare no one saw coming. Continue listening to witness how one man rises from heartbreak to become his daughter's greatest protector, and how, in the end, strength, love, and truth rewrite their future. Have you ever looked at your life and realized that everything you thought was real was actually a carefully constructed lie? That the person sleeping beside you every night was a stranger? That the home you built together was just a beautiful prison? This is the story of a man who thought he had everything, until one forgotten phone and a frantic text message shattered his world into a million irreparable pieces. Bruce Shefford was 41 years old when his life imploded. But to understand the magnitude of the collapse, you have to understand the foundation he thought he had built. Bruce was the kind of man who did everything by the book. Steady, reliable, predictable. He was a biomechanical engineer with a major corporation, the kind of job that came with respect, stability, and a salary that could provide the comfortable middle-class life he had always dreamed of giving his family. He met Molly Richardson at a house party in the spring of 2003. Bruce still remembered that night with crystal clarity, the way Molly laughed at his awkward engineering jokes, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she smiled. She was 25 then, working as a paralegal after graduating from community college. Bruce was finishing his graduate degree, drowning in research papers and thesis revisions. But the moment he saw Molly across that crowded living room, everything else faded into background noise. Molly was beautiful in an understated way. She had shoulder-length brown hair that she usually wore in a simple ponytail, warm hazel eyes, and a smile that made everyone around her feel like they mattered. She was the kind of person who would give you the coat off her back if you looked cold, who remembered your coffee order after meeting you once, who sent birthday cards to acquaintances she barely knew. Everyone who met Molly loved her. Bruce fell hard and fast. Their courtship was a whirlwind of coffee dates and long walks, of late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. Molly would bring him dinner when he was studying late at the library, homemade pasta or her signature chicken stir-fry, packed carefully in containers with little notes tucked inside. Bruce would surprise her with flowers for no reason, just because he saw them and thought of her. Within 3 months, they made it official. They were a couple, and Bruce knew with absolute certainty that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with this woman. Molly had one sister, Sydney, who was 5 years younger. Growing up, Molly and Sydney had not been particularly close. Their parents had divorced when they were young, and the girls had been shuffled between households, never quite finding stable ground. Molly rarely talked about her childhood, and when she did, there was a sadness in her eyes that made Bruce want to protect her from every hurt the world could offer. As adults, though, Molly and Sydney had reconnected, building the sisterly bond they had missed in their youth. Sydney was married to a man named Henry, and they had 3 kids of their own. The families would get together for holidays, and Bruce enjoyed watching Molly laugh with her sister, finally having the family connection she had always craved. After a year of dating, Molly's landlord informed her that he was selling the building. She had 30 days to find a new place. The rental market was brutal, and Molly was stressed trying to find something affordable. Bruce did not even hesitate. He suggested they move in together. It felt natural, inevitable. They were already spending most nights together anyway, and Bruce could not imagine his life without her. Living together was everything Bruce had hoped it would be. Molly was tidy but not obsessive, a good cook, easy to share space with. She respected his need for quiet when he was working on complex projects, and he loved the way she hummed while doing dishes, off-key but endearing. They fell into comfortable routines. Bruce would make coffee in the mornings while Molly showered. She would pack his lunch with the same care she had shown when they were dating. They would curl up on their second-hand couch in the evenings, watching old movies and talking about their dreams. And they had so many dreams. Molly wanted to live somewhere warm, maybe near the coast, where they could take their future children to the beach on weekends. Bruce wanted a house with a workshop in the garage where he could tinker with his projects. Molly talked about getting her real estate license someday, about being her own boss. Bruce dreamed of climbing high enough in his career to provide security for his family, to never have to worry about money the way his parents had. Every conversation revealed another way they aligned, another shared value, another dream that overlapped perfectly. When Bruce finished his graduate degree in 2007, he got down on one knee in the same park where they had taken their first official date walk. The ring was modest, all he could afford on a graduate student's budget, but Molly cried happy tears and said yes before he could even finish his rehearsed speech. Both their families were thrilled. Bruce's parents, Andrew and Rosemary Shefford, were overjoyed. Bruce was their eldest son. His younger brother, Tyler, was in a committed relationship, but showed no signs of wanting to get married. So Andrew and Rosemary were excited to finally have a wedding to plan. They got married in March of 2000 and ate in a small ceremony at a local botanical garden. Molly wore a simple white dress she found on sale, and Bruce wore his only suit, freshly dry-cleaned. His parents insisted on paying for half the wedding, wanting to give their son and new daughter-in-law a proper celebration. But Molly and Bruce kept it modest anyway, preferring to save their money for the future. They invited only close family and friends, maybe 70 people total. The reception was in a rented community hall, with a playlist Bruce made himself and potluck dishes that their guests contributed. It was not fancy, but it was perfect. After the wedding, reality set in quickly. Bruce received a job offer from a major biomedical engineering firm based in a mid-sized southern city, 14 hours away from where they had built their life. The position was exactly what he had been working toward, designing prosthetic limbs and mobility devices for people with disabilities. The pay was excellent, nearly double what he could make staying local, and the opportunity for advancement was significant. But accepting meant leaving everything familiar behind. The decision was agonizing, especially for Molly. She loved her family, loved being close to Sydney and her parents. She had friends in the area, a job she enjoyed, a community she was part of. The idea of moving so far away made her anxious, but they had talked about this possibility before getting married. They had agreed that if the right opportunity came along, they would take it, even if it was hard. This was that opportunity. So Molly packed up her life, quit her paralegal job, and moved 14 hours south with her new husband, trusting that they were building something worth the sacrifice. They bought a house in a family-friendly neighborhood with excellent schools and reasonable prices. It was a modest 3-bedroom ranch-style home with a small yard, white siding, and a 2-car garage. Molly spent weeks decorating, making it feel like home. She painted the bedrooms in soft, welcoming colors. She hung curtains and arranged furniture and planted flowers in the front beds. Bruce threw himself into his new job, eager to prove himself, to show the company they had made the right choice in hearing him. The job was demanding from the start. Bruce's position required frequent travel to meet with clients, attend conferences, and oversee installations of the medical devices his team designed. At first, it was manageable, just a day or two each week. Molly understood. This was what they had signed up for. The paycheck was good, and they were saving aggressively, preparing for the next phase of their life, the phase where they would become parents. They had always wanted children. Molly especially had dreamed of being a mother since she was young. She had specific ideas about what kind of parent she wanted to be, warm and present and engaged, everything her own mother had struggled to be. Bruce wanted to give his children the stable, loving home he had grown up in, to be the kind of father his own dad had been. When Molly called Bruce at the airport one evening, frantic and insistent that he get home immediately, his heart nearly stopped. He was just finishing a business trip, getting ready for the hour-long drive back. Molly usually only called once, maybe twice during his trips. But this time, his phone rang 4 times in quick succession, followed by a flurry of urgent text messages. Bruce drove home in record time, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Had someone died? Was Molly hurt? Had the house been broken into? He flew through the front door to find the house completely dark and silent. He called out for Molly, his voice echoing through the empty rooms. Then the lights flicked on, and there she was, holding a cake with a simple plus sign drawn in icing. Molly was pregnant. They cried together in the hallway, holding each other and laughing with relief and joy. This was what they had been waiting for. This was the beginning of the family they had dreamed about since their early dates in coffee shops and parks. The next 4 years were a beautiful, exhausting blur. Molly gave birth to their first daughter, Lillian, in the spring of 2009. She was a perfect baby with Molly's hazel eyes and Bruce's serious expression. 18 months later, Abigail arrived, fierce and loud from her first breath. And 18 months after that, Marie completed their family, a surprise but a welcome one. 3 daughters under 4 years old. The house was chaos, wonderful chaos, filled with toys and laughter and the constant motion of small children. Molly threw herself into motherhood with the dedication Bruce had expected. She read parenting books, joined mommy groups, decorated the girls' rooms with care. Bruce did his best to be present, but his job demands were increasing. The company was expanding, and Bruce's expertise was in high demand. The travel increased from occasional trips to weekly Monday through Friday absences. Bruce hated being away from his family, but the money was too good to pass up. His salary had increased significantly, and they were building a comfortable nest egg. He made sure to call home every single day, talking to Molly and each of the girls individually. He would ask Lillian about her day at preschool, listen to Abigail's rambling stories, hear Marie's baby babbles through the phone. On weekends, he was fully present, taking the girls to parks, planning family outings, giving Molly breaks so she could have time to herself. As the girls grew, their personalities emerged. Lillian was serious and responsible, the natural caretaker even as a small child. She would help Molly with her younger sisters, fetching diapers or bottles, entertaining them when they were fussy. Abigail was the wild child, always climbing, always exploring, always testing boundaries. Marie was the charmer, with an infectious laugh and a way of wrapping everyone around her little finger. When Lillian was 6, Abigail was 4, and Marie was 2, Molly started talking about going back to school to get her real estate license. She had always been interested in property and design, and she thought selling homes could be a fulfilling career once the girls were older. Bruce encouraged the idea, but Molly kept putting it off. She said it was too much to manage with 3 young children. She said being a full-time mother was exhausting enough without adding coursework and exam prep. Bruce understood. He saw how hard she worked, managing the household, caring for the girls, keeping everything running smoothly while he was gone all week. The years passed in a rhythm of school drop-offs and pickups, birthday parties and holidays, piano recitals and soccer games. The girls grew from toddlers to children. Lillian started elementary school, then Abigail, then Marie. They each found their passion in tennis, taking lessons at a local club and showing real talent for the sport. Bruce loved watching them play, loved seeing their focus and determination on the court. When Lillian was 12, Abigail was 10, and Marie was 8, Molly brought up the idea of moving. It came out of nowhere one evening after the girls had gone to bed. Bruce and Molly were in their bedroom, getting ready to sleep, when Molly said she had been thinking about relocating. Bruce was surprised. He thought they were happy where they were. The girls had grown up in this house, in this neighborhood. They had friends, activities, a community. This was home. But Molly seemed restless. She said she felt suffocated in their current city. She wanted a change, a fresh start. She wanted to finally get her real estate certification, and she thought a move could be the catalyst she needed. She talked about a specific area on the East Coast, a place they had vacationed at twice a year for nearly 8 years. She said she had found a house she loved and wanted Bruce to at least look at it during their next visit. Bruce was hesitant. Moving would complicate his travel schedule significantly. Their current location was near a major airport hub, making his weekly trips manageable. Moving to the coast would add hours to his commute each week. And what about the girls? Was it fair to uproot them from everything they knew? But Molly was insistent, more insistent than Bruce had seen her about anything in years. She had clearly been planning this for a while, researching areas and properties. When they visited the coastal town 2 weeks later, Molly was radiant. She loved everything about it, the beach, the small-town feel, the tree-lined streets. The girls were enrolled in a tennis academy session during the vacation, giving Molly and Bruce time to look at houses. The house Molly had found was beautiful, a 4-bedroom colonial with a large backyard, in a gated community with tennis courts, pools, and walking trails. It had been on the market for 8 months and was priced below market value. Molly was in love. Bruce watched her walk through the rooms, planning where furniture would go, imagining their life there. Her happiness was contagious. Maybe this move was what they needed. Maybe it would breathe new life into their marriage, give Molly the purpose she seemed to be seeking. Within 2 months, they had sold their old house and moved to the coast. Bruce thought they should wait until the end of the school year, but Molly wanted to move immediately. The girls seemed fine with it, though Bruce noticed that Lillian, now 14, seemed quieter than usual. When he asked her about the move, she said she was okay with it, but something in her eyes told a different story. Bruce pulled Lillian aside one evening and gently pressed her. She admitted that she had not really wanted to move, that she felt like Molly had pressured her into agreeing. Bruce was troubled by this. He told Lillian that her feelings mattered, that he would talk to Molly about it. But Lillian begged him not to say anything. She said it would upset Molly, and she did not want to cause problems. Reluctantly, Bruce agreed, but a small alarm bell rang in the back of his mind. The new house was in an upscale, gated community with everything the family could need within walking or biking distance. There was a state-of-the-art tennis center where the girls could train year-round, multiple community pools, clubhouses, and just outside the gates was a major grocery store and shopping center. The girls could bike to almost everything they needed. It seemed perfect. Molly enrolled in a real estate certification program that met in the evenings, from 7 until 11, 3 nights a week. Bruce supported her decision. The girls were old enough to be on their own for a few hours, and the neighborhood was extremely safe. There were neighbors on all sides if anything went wrong. Molly would still be home when the girls got back from school and would leave only after dinner. Life seemed to settle into a new normal. The girls adapted to their new schools and made new friends through tennis. Bruce continued his weekly travel routine, though now his trips required longer commutes and earlier departures. Molly studied for her licensing exam, spreading textbooks and notes across the kitchen table in the afternoons before leaving for class. But Bruce started noticing small things that bothered him. Lillian, who had always been a healthy, athletic girl with a larger build, was losing weight. At first, Bruce thought it was from the increased tennis training, 6 hours a day in the summer program. But as the months passed, Lillian looked thinner and thinner, her clothes hanging loose on her frame. Abigail and Marie, now 12 and 10, were acting out more than usual. There were frequent screaming matches between the sisters, doors slamming, objects being thrown. Bruce and Molly both struggled to manage the outbursts, but interestingly, Lillian seemed to be the most effective at calming her sisters down. She had a way of talking to them that worked when parental intervention failed. One Saturday afternoon, Bruce was home alone making lunch when Lillian came back from the tennis center. She walked right past him without her usual greeting, and he could see tear tracks on her face. She went straight to her room and locked the door. Bruce followed immediately, knocking and asking what was wrong. Lillian told him to leave her alone. He stood outside her door, heart aching, and told her that if she needed anything, she could come to his room to talk. After several long minutes, Lillian unlocked the door. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked around nervously and asked if Molly was home. Bruce said no, that Molly was at the library studying for her upcoming exam. Only then did Lillian let herself fall into Bruce's arms, crying like her heart was breaking. Bruce held his daughter, and for the first time he really noticed how much weight she had lost. He could feel her ribs through her shirt, could feel how small she had become. It frightened him. When Lillian pulled away, she would not explain what was wrong. She just thanked him and closed her door again, leaving Bruce standing in the hallway, confused and worried. Something told Bruce to check Lillian's medical records. He went to the garage where they kept organized files of important documents. He pulled out Lillian's annual physical records and saw the numbers that confirmed his fears. At age 12, Lillian had been 5'3" and 130 pounds. At her most recent physical at age 14, she was 5'4" and 110 pounds. A 20-pound weight loss for an active, growing teenage girl was alarming. Bruce put the documents away, his mind racing. He went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. It was fully stocked, but everything looked brand new. For a family of 5, they went through groceries quickly, yet everything in the fridge looked like it had just been purchased the day before. It was strange. Bruce made a mental note but tried to push the worry aside. Over the following weekends, the situation seemed to deteriorate. Lillian became more withdrawn. Abigail and Marie's fights became more frequent and more intense. Bruce felt like he was missing something important, but he could not figure out what. Then, one Monday morning, everything changed. Marie woke up screaming in pain, clutching her stomach. Molly and Bruce both rushed to her room. Marie was pale and sweating, clearly in agony. They needed to get her to the hospital immediately. Molly insisted that she would take Marie to the emergency room while Bruce stayed home with Lillian and Abigail. That way, when the older girls woke up, they would not panic. Bruce helped Marie to the car, supporting her small body as she whimpered in pain. Molly drove off quickly, and Bruce turned to go back inside. That is when he noticed Molly's phone sitting on the kitchen counter. She had forgotten it in the rush to get Marie to the hospital. Bruce picked up the phone, intending to take it to her at the hospital. They had an open phone policy in their marriage. No passwords, no secrets. But as he held the phone, a notification popped up on the screen. A text message from Sydney, Molly's sister. The message preview was enough to stop Bruce's heart. "You need to end this affair before he finds out. It will destroy everything." Bruce stared at the screen. Affair. The word seemed to pulse and glow. His hands were shaking as he unlocked the phone and opened the full message thread with Sydney. What he read made his stomach turn. Molly had been confiding in her sister about a relationship with someone named Ivan. She missed being with him. He made her feel like a woman again. She looked forward to her evening library sessions with him. She knew it was wrong, but she was falling in love. Bruce's world tilted. Library sessions. Molly had not been studying at the library. She had been meeting a man she was falling in love with. With trembling fingers, Bruce searched through Molly's messages, looking for contact with anyone named Ivan. There was no one under that name. But when he typed Ivan into the search bar, messages appeared under a contact saved as Anna. The messages were explicit. There were nude photos, sexual texts, detailed plans for meetups. According to the message timestamps, Molly had been seeing Ivan almost every evening that she claimed to be at the library. Every Monday through Friday when Bruce was away on business trips, Molly was with another man. Bruce felt like he might be sick. He quickly wrote down Ivan's phone number and key details, then put Molly's message screen back to the conversation with Sydney. He could not process what he had just discovered. How long had this been going on? Was Ivan the only one? Had the girls met him? And beneath the shock and anger, there was guilt. Bruce blamed himself. If he had not traveled so much, if he had been home more, would Molly have needed to seek attention elsewhere? 20 minutes later, Bruce loaded Lillian and Abigail into the car and drove to the hospital. On the way, he received a call from a nurse informing him that Marie had acute appendicitis and was already in surgery. Bruce did not share this news with Lillian and Abigail, who were sleepy and quiet in the backseat. He needed to be strong for his daughters, to focus on Marie's health, even as his mind kept returning to the messages on Molly's phone. Marie came through surgery successfully, but needed to stay in the hospital for 3 days. Bruce took the entire week off work to be with his family. Molly spent most of her time at the hospital with Marie, and when she was home, she was preparing for her licensing exam, which was scheduled for the following week. Every evening at 6:30, Molly would kiss Bruce goodbye before leaving for her supposed study sessions. Each kiss felt like a betrayal. Bruce knew those lips had kissed Ivan. Those hands had touched another man. The woman he loved, the mother of his children, was living a double life. On Thursday evening, after Molly left for her library session, Lillian appeared at Bruce's bedroom door. She looked exhausted, like she had been crying for hours. She asked if they could talk. What Lillian told Bruce that night shattered what remained of his world. Lillian had known about Ivan. She had seen him at their house, but that was not even the worst of it. Lillian explained, haltingly and with tears streaming down her face, that she had been acting as a mother to her sisters since she was 5 years old. Molly would lock herself in her bedroom for days at a time, sleeping or eating, refusing to come out. There were periods when Lillian would not see her mother for 3 or 4 days straight. The food in the house would run so low that Lillian, at 9 and 10 years old, would load her bike with reusable grocery bags and make 3 or 4 trips to the store, struggling to bring home enough food to feed her sisters. Lillian had taught herself to cook by watching YouTube videos, making simple meals for Abigail and Marie. She would get her sisters ready for school, pack their lunches, help them with homework. She was the one who signed permission slips when Molly would not come out of her room. She was the one who put bandages on scraped knees and checked for monsters under beds. And Molly had told Lillian that this was normal. When Lillian tried to talk to Molly about whether she might be depressed, Molly dismissed it, saying that all mothers felt overwhelmed sometimes. When Lillian expressed concern about her own weight, Molly told her she was not at her ideal body weight yet and needed to keep restricting her meals. Molly had put Lillian on a diet, 1 meal a day, just lunch. This for a girl who was training in tennis for 6 hours a day, biking 10 miles, swimming for 2 hours, and taking care of her younger siblings. Lillian was literally starving herself because her mother told her to. Bruce could barely breathe as Lillian talked. Rage built in his chest, white-hot and consuming. He wanted to scream. He wanted to throw things. He wanted to confront Molly immediately and drag her out of whatever hotel room she was in with Ivan. But Lillian was sobbing, begging him not to do anything, saying it would ruin the family. She thought she would ruin the family if the truth came out. Bruce held his daughter and promised her that he would protect her, that Molly would never hurt her again. He told Lillian he loved her and that she had done nothing wrong. He promised to get her into counseling, to make sure she had support to process everything she had been through. When Molly came home that night at 11, Bruce wanted to confront her immediately. But he forced himself to wait until the next day when the girls would be out of the house at their tennis program. Friday morning came. The girls left at 8. Bruce waited until 8:30, then calmly asked Melito sit down. He told her he knew about the affair. Molly's face went white. She denied everything. She said Bruce was being ridiculous, that she had never cheated, that she could not believe he would accuse her of such a thing. She was a good actress, her voice steady and offended. But Bruce had prepared for this. Before the conversation, he had messaged Sydney, Molly's sister. Sydney had responded that she could not keep the secret anymore, that she was sorry, that she would tell Bruce whatever he needed to know. Bruce told Molly that Sydney had already confirmed the affair. He pulled out the piece of paper where he had written Ivan's phone number. Molly's face crumbled. She tried one more denial, but Bruce asked if he could type the number into her phone's search bar. Molly hesitated, her hands shaking, before finally handing over her phone. Bruce typed in the number. The messages with Anna appeared on the screen, all the explicit photos and texts laid bare. Molly collapsed into tears. She fell to her knees, grabbing at Bruce's legs, begging him not to leave her. She swore she would end the affair immediately. She said it only happened because Bruce was gone so much, because she was lonely taking care of the children all by herself. That was when Bruce's control snapped. He yelled at her about the days she locked herself in her room. About the days Lillian had to be the mother because Molly refused to get out of bed. About Lillian starving herself because Molly told her to. Molly cried harder, making excuses, but Bruce was beyond listening. He told her he wanted a divorce, and that was when Molly made her final, desperate play. She ran to the kitchen and grabbed a large knife from the block on the counter. She held it to her own throat and threatened to kill herself right there if Bruce left her. She said if he walked out that door, she would make sure the girls found her body. Bruce froze, horrified. He had never seen Molly like this, wild-eyed and desperate, the knife pressed against her skin. He begged her to put the knife down, to please just put it down so they could talk. Molly said she would only put down the knife if Bruce forgave her. She promised to stop seeing Ivan. She promised to be a better mother, but only if Bruce forgave her and agreed to work on their marriage. What choice did Bruce have? He said he forgave her. Molly lowered the knife and collapsed into his arms, sobbing and thanking him over and over. That had been 2 weeks ago. Since then, Bruce had been moving in careful, deliberate steps. He contacted divorce attorneys, speaking to them in hushed phone calls from his office or car. He researched apartments and condos in the area, looking for something affordable where he and the girls could start over. He emailed his boss, a man named Richard Torres who had always been supportive, explaining the situation and asking about the possibility of remote work or a transfer to a local office. The problem was that all their family, Bruce's parents and brother, lived 16 hours away. Bruce had not told them what was happening. He had not told anyone except the lawyers and his boss. He felt isolated and alone, playing the role of dutiful husband while plotting his escape. Molly kept reminding him that he had forgiven her, that they needed to move on for the sake of the girls. She claimed she had broken things off with Ivan, but Bruce did not believe her. He noticed that she still left in the evenings, claiming she needed to study at the library one more time before her exam. Bruce was certain she was still seeing her lover. Bruce felt trapped. He was terrified that if he left, Molly would get custody of the girls. She could easily paint him as an absent father who was always traveling, who did not know his own children, who was unwilling to co-parent. She could claim he was abusive, that she was afraid of him, that the girls needed to stay with their mother. Bruce had seen enough custody battles to know that mothers often had the advantage, especially when fathers worked demanding jobs that required travel. So Bruce waited for his boss to respond about remote work options. He waited for the lawyers to advise him on the best strategy. He watched over his daughters, especially Lillian, trying to give them stability while everything crumbled around him. He had no idea what it would be like to be a single father to 3 girls. He only knew that he had to try, that he had to get them away from Molly before more damage was done. He would fight with everything he had to protect his daughters. The response from his boss, Richard, came 3 days later. Richard was sympathetic and understanding. He had teenage daughters himself and could not imagine what Bruce was going through. Richard offered Bruce a position in the company's regional office in the same city, eliminating the need for weekly travel. The pay would be slightly less, but Bruce would be home every night. It was exactly what Bruce needed. With that piece in place, Bruce moved forward with his plans. He consulted with his lead attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Moore who specialized in fathers' rights cases. Patricia was blunt and realistic. She told Bruce that getting sole custody with no visitation would be nearly impossible unless they could prove Molly was an immediate danger to the children. However, sole custody with supervised visitation was achievable given the evidence they had. Bruce wanted no visitation at all. He could not stomach the idea of Molly having any access to Lillian after what she had done. But Patricia advised him to be strategic. Fighting for 0 visitation might make him look vindictive and could backfire. Supervised visitation was a strong stance that showed he was concerned for the children's welfare while still appearing reasonable to a judge. Bruce did not care about appearing reasonable. He cared about protecting his girls. But he trusted Patricia's expertise, so he agreed to pursue sole custody with supervised visits as the goal. The next step was documenting everything. Patricia told Bruce to keep detailed records of Molly's behavior, the girls' statements, any evidence of neglect or the affair. Bruce had already saved Ivan's contact information and key messages. Now he needed more. Sydney, Molly's sister, turned out to be Bruce's most valuable ally. When Bruce reached out to her, Sydney broke down crying on the phone. She said she had been carrying the secret of Molly's affair for months and it had been eating her alive. She told Bruce she had tried multiple times to convince Molly to stop, to get help, to be honest with her husband. But Molly had ignored her. Sydney provided Bruce with screenshots of her text conversations with Molly. Conversations where Molly admitted to the affair, talked about her feelings for Ivan, complained about her marriage. Sydney also shared that Molly had confided other troubling things, like her struggles to get out of bed, her resentment toward the children for tying her down, her belief that her life would have been better if she had never gotten married. Sydney agreed to testify if the case went to court. She was deeply ashamed of her sister's behavior and wanted to help protect her nieces. Sydney was a good mother to her own 3 children, and she could not stand by while Molly destroyed her family. With Sydney's testimony and the documented evidence, Patricia felt confident they had a strong case. Bruce served Molly with divorce papers on a Tuesday morning in October. He had arranged for the girls to be at school and for him to be working from home that day. A professional process server came to the door, and Bruce watched from the kitchen as Molly signed for the documents. Molly's face went through a range of emotions: confusion, shock, disbelief, and finally rage. She stormed into the kitchen where Bruce sat calmly drinking coffee. "What is this?" she demanded, waving the papers. "Exactly what it looks like," Bruce said. "I am divorcing you, and I am seeking sole custody of our daughters." Molly laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "You cannot do this. You forgave me. We agreed to work on our marriage." "I lied," Bruce said simply. "I said what I needed to say to get you to put down the knife. But I am done, Molly. This marriage is over." "You will never get custody," Molly hissed. "I am their mother. I have been home with them their entire lives while you were off traveling for work. No judge will take children away from their mother and give them to an absent father." "I am not absent anymore," Bruce said. "I have taken a position in the local office. I will be home every single night, and I have evidence of your neglect, your affair. Your manipulation of our daughter. You are not fit to be a mother." Molly's face flushed red. "You have no idea what you are talking about. I have done everything for those girls. I gave up my career to raise them. I gave up my life." "You locked yourself in your room and made Lillian raise them," Bruce said, his voice rising. "You starved our daughter. You made a 14-year-old child feel responsible for holding this family together. You are lucky I am not pursuing criminal charges." Molly grabbed a glass from the counter and threw it at Bruce. He ducked, and it shattered against the wall behind him. "Get out!" she screamed. "Get out of my house." "It is my house, too," Bruce said calmly, though his heart was pounding. "And I am not going anywhere. You are welcome to leave if you want." Molly stared at him with pure hatred in her eyes. Then she grabbed her purse and keys and stormed out of the house, peeling out of the driveway so fast she left skid marks. Bruce sat in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by broken glass, and felt oddly calm. It was done. The wheels were in motion. There was no going back now. The divorce process was brutal and slow. Molly fought him on every single point. She contested the divorce, claiming there were no grounds, that Bruce was being unreasonable, that they could work things out with counseling. She demanded the house, half of all assets, spousal support, and primary custody of the girls, with Bruce paying child support. Patricia filed motions, presented evidence, scheduled depositions. Sydney gave her testimony, detailing Molly's admissions about the affair and her neglect of the children. Lillian's therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Sarah Patel, provided professional assessment of Lillian's mental state and the effects of parentification and emotional abuse. Bruce had enrolled all 3 girls in therapy immediately after filing for divorce. Lillian went twice a week, working through years of trauma and misplaced guilt. Abigail and Marie each went once a week, processing the changes in their family and their own experiences. All 3 girls were doing remarkably better. They were more relaxed, more open, more like the children they should have been all along. Bruce also made the difficult decision to move the girls to a different school district. He did not want them running into Molly at pickup or drop-off, did not want the constant anxiety of wondering when they might encounter her. Surprisingly, Molly agreed to this, perhaps because she knew fighting it would make her look bad in court. The girls thrived in their new school. They made friends quickly, joined clubs, pursued interests they had not had time for before. Lillian joined the debate team and discovered she loved public speaking. Abigail took up art and spent hours sketching in notebooks Bruce bought her. Marie joined the school choir and had a surprisingly beautiful singing voice. Bruce's parents, Andrew and Rosemary, came to visit as soon as Bruce told them what was happening. They were shocked and heartbroken, both for Bruce and for their granddaughters. Rosemary cried when she heard what Lillian had been through. Andrew, a quiet man who rarely showed strong emotion, had to leave the room to compose himself. Andrew and Rosemary had always wanted to be more involved in their granddaughters' lives. But the distance and Bruce's travel schedule had made it difficult. Now they visited every other weekend, driving the 16-hour round trip because they wanted to support their son and get to know their granddaughters. Watching the girls with their grandparents was one of the few bright spots in the whole terrible situation. Lillian would help Rosemary bake cookies, carefully measuring ingredients and learning family recipes. Abigail would sit with Andrew in the garage, watching him fix things and asking a million questions. Marie would curl up with both grandparents on the couch, reading books and telling them about her week. Bruce regretted not facilitating this relationship sooner. His parents were wonderful with the girls, patient and kind, and genuinely interested in their lives. The girls needed this, needed to know they had family who loved them unconditionally. As for Bruce's personal life, he had no interest in dating. Lillian had asked him once in her cautious way if he would ever want to find someone new. Bruce told her honestly that he could not imagine being with anyone else. When he said his wedding vows, he had meant them. He had believed in forever. The fact that Molly had broken those vows did not change Bruce's fundamental nature. He was a one-woman man, and that woman had betrayed him. Besides, he was a single father to 3 girls now, with a demanding job and an ongoing divorce. What woman would want to take that on? Bruce was not being self-pitying, just realistic. His girls were his priority, his entire focus. There was no room for romance in his life, and he was okay with that. The investigation into Molly's affair revealed more details. Ivan turned out to be a divorced real estate agent, 43 years old, who taught some of the evening certification classes Molly had been taking. They had met on the first night of class and started flirting immediately. What began as innocent conversations after class had progressed to coffee dates, then to drinks, then to hotel rooms. The affair had been going on for 7 months. Molly and Ivan had been together multiple times a week, whenever Molly could get away. Some of their meetups had been at Ivan's apartment. Some had been at hotels. And yes, there had been times when Ivan had been to Bruce and Molly's house, in Bruce's bed, while the girls were home. Bruce felt violently ill when he learned this. The thought of another man in his house, in his bed, while his daughters were just down the hall, made him want to break things. Patricia advised him to channel that rage into the custody case, to use it as motivation to fight harder for his girls. As the divorce dragged on through winter and into spring, Bruce settled into his new role as a fully present father. He packed lunches and checked homework. He attended parent-teacher conferences and school plays. He learned to French braid hair through YouTube tutorials because Marie wanted braids like her friends. He became familiar with teenage girl drama and learned when to offer advice and when to just listen. It was exhausting and overwhelming, and sometimes he had no idea what he was doing. But it was also the most important thing he had ever done. His girls needed him, and he would not fail them. The custody evaluation was scheduled for March, 10 months after Bruce had filed for divorce. A court-appointed psychologist would interview both Bruce and Molly, observe each parent with the children, and make a recommendation to the judge. Bruce was nervous but confident. He had nothing to hide. His home was clean and well-maintained. His girls were healthy and happy. He had stable employment and a strong support system with his parents. Molly's evaluation did not go as well. The psychologist noted that Molly seemed detached from the children during observed visits. Molly talked about herself constantly, about how hard her life had been, about what she had sacrificed. She did not ask the girls about their lives or interests. When Lillian mentioned an upcoming debate competition, Molly changed the subject. When Marie tried to show Molly a drawing, Molly barely glanced at it. The psychologist's report was damning. It noted Molly's narcissistic tendencies, her lack of emotional attunement to the children, and concerns about her mental stability. The report recommended that Bruce be granted primary physical custody, with Molly receiving supervised visitation every other weekend until she completed a court-mandated parenting course and individual therapy. It was not sole custody with no visitation, but it was close enough. The supervision requirement meant Molly could not be alone with the girls, that a court-appointed supervisor would be present during all visits. It meant the girls were protected. The divorce was finalized in Marie, 14 months after Bruce had first filed. Bruce was granted primary physical and legal custody. Molly received supervised visitation. The house was sold, with proceeds split evenly. Bruce kept his retirement accounts, Molly kept hers. There was no spousal support awarded given Molly's infidelity and the relatively short length of the marriage compared to Molly's working years before children. Molly was furious with the outcome. She filed an appeal, but Patricia was not concerned. The evidence was overwhelming, and appeals rarely succeeded in custody cases without significant new evidence. Bruce bought a modest 4-bedroom house in a good school district, close to his office. Each girl got her own room. Bruce converted the 4th bedroom into a homework and craft space where the girls could spread out projects. The house had a small backyard with room for a garden, and Marie immediately claimed a section where she wanted to grow vegetables. They moved in August, just before the new school year started. Bruce's parents came to help, and Tyler, Bruce's brother, took a week off work to drive down and assist. Tyler was great with the girls, joking and teasing them in a way that made them laugh. He took them to movies and ice cream while Bruce and their parents unpacked boxes. On the first night in the new house, Bruce ordered pizza for everyone. They ate sitting on the floor of the empty living room because the furniture had not been delivered yet. Lillian made a toast with her soda can, thanking her dad for everything he had done. Marie added that this house already felt more like home than the old one ever had. Abigail just smiled, quiet for once, but Bruce could see the relief in her eyes. Bruce looked around at his family, his parents, his brother, his 3 beautiful daughters, and felt something he had not felt in over a year. Hope. They had been through hell, but they had come out the other side. The girls were healing. Bruce was healing. They were building a new life, a better life, a life based on honesty and love and actually being present for each other. As for Molly, Bruce rarely thought about her anymore. He had heard through Sydney that Molly and Ivan were living together, that Molly had finally gotten her real estate license and was working for Ivan's agency. Sydney said Molly seemed happy, or at least content, in her new life. Bruce felt nothing about this news. Molly was no longer his concern. His only concern was that she stayed away from his daughters unless supervised, that she could not hurt them anymore. The supervised visits were awkward and tense. Molly would show up to the visitation center, a neutral location with court-appointed monitors, and spend 2 hours with the girls every other Sunday. She mostly talked at them rather than with them. She asked surface-level questions and did not seem interested in the answers. She talked about her new condo, her new job, her new life, as if trying to prove she was fine without them. The girls tolerated these visits but did not enjoy them. Lillian went because the court ordered it, but she was polite and distant. Abigail brought homework and did it during the visits, barely engaging. Marie, the youngest and most forgiving, tried to connect with Molly, but even she grew discouraged when Molly showed little interest in her stories or drawings. After 6 months of supervised visits, Molly stopped showing up consistently. She would cancel at the last minute, claiming work conflicts. The girls were hurt at first, but Bruce helped them understand that this was about Molly's limitations, not about their worth. Gradually, the girls stopped expecting much from their mother, stopped hoping she would suddenly become the parent they needed. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, Bruce sat down with each daughter individually and asked if they wanted to continue the visits with Molly. All 3 said no. Lillian was 16 now, Abigail was 14, and Marie was 12. They were old enough to have a say in the matter. Bruce filed a motion to terminate the visitation arrangement based on Molly's inconsistent attendance and the girls' wishes. The judge granted it. Molly did not contest. She had moved on to her new life and seemed relieved to be released from the obligation of pretending to parent. Bruce knew some people would judge him for this, for allowing his daughters to cut off contact with their mother. But those people had not seen what Molly had done to Lillian. They had not watched their daughters flinch every time Molly called. They had not seen the relief on the girls' faces when a visit was canceled. Bruce's job was to protect his daughters, and sometimes protection meant removing toxic people from their lives, even if that person was their mother. Lillian graduated high school with honors and a full scholarship to a prestigious university where she planned to study psychology. She wanted to work with children who had experienced trauma, wanted to be the support system she wished she had when she was younger. Bruce was incredibly proud of her. Abigail was thriving in high school, a talented artist who had won several regional competitions. She was thinking about art school, and Bruce encouraged her to pursue her passion. Marie was in middle school, still sweet and optimistic despite everything she had been through. She had joined the school musical theater program and discovered she loved performing. She talked about Broadway and acting, dreams that seemed big but not impossible for a girl with her determination. Bruce looked at his daughters, at the strong, resilient young women they were becoming, and knew that they were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be extraordinary. As for himself, Bruce had come to terms with his new life. He was 43 now, a single father, focused entirely on his girls and his work. He had a close relationship with his parents, who visited monthly and called weekly. He had his brother, who texted dad jokes and memes and checked in regularly. He had a small circle of friends from work, other parents from the girls' schools, a support network that kept him grounded. He still did not date. The one time a colleague tried to set him up on a blind date, Bruce politely declined. His heart was not ready, might never be ready, and that was fine. He had his daughters, his family, his work. His life was full. Sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet and the girls were asleep, Bruce would think about what his life might have been like if Molly had not cheated, if she had been the partner and mother he thought she was. But those thoughts did not last long. He could not change the past, and honestly, he would not want to. Because changing the past might mean his daughters were still living with a mother who neglected them, still carrying burdens no child should carry. The path they had taken was painful, but it led them to a better place. A place where Lillian could just be a teenager, where Abigail could paint without worrying about her sisters, where Marie could sing without fear. A place where Bruce could be the father he always wanted to be. Meanwhile, Molly's life took a different trajectory. Her relationship with Ivan lasted about a year after the divorce before it fell apart. Ivan, it turned out, was not interested in a serious commitment. He liked the excitement of the affair, the sneaking around, but living with Molly in the harsh light of day was different. They fought constantly about money, about Molly's drinking, which had gotten worse, about her inability to keep a job. Molly went through 3 different real estate agencies in 2 years, burning bridges at each one. She had trouble showing up on time, would cancel client meetings, and had a habit of making everything about herself instead of focusing on the client's needs. Word spread in the small real estate community, and eventually, she could not find an agency willing to hire her. Sydney kept Bruce updated occasionally, not out of gossip, but because she thought he should know in case it affected the girls. Sydney said Molly was struggling financially, living in a small apartment, working retail jobs to make ends meet. Molly blamed everyone but herself for her problems. She blamed Bruce for the divorce, blamed Ivan for leaving her, blamed her employers for being unreasonable. When Lillian was 18 and leaving for college, she received a letter from Molly. It was a rambling, self-pitying message about how hard Molly's life had been, how she had made mistakes, but did not deserve to lose her children, how she hoped Lillian would reach out when she was ready to forgive. Lillian showed Bruce the letter and asked what she should do. Bruce told her it was entirely her choice. Lillian thought about it for a week before writing a brief response. She told Molly that she wished her well but was not ready for a relationship. She said maybe someday, but not now. She needed to focus on her own healing and future. Molly did not respond to Lillian's letter. Perhaps she was angry or hurt or simply moved on to the next drama in her life. Lillian was okay with the silence. 5 years after the divorce, Bruce attended Lillian's college graduation. She had excelled in her studies, made wonderful friends, and already had a job lined up at a children's mental health clinic. Abigail was finishing her junior year at art school, preparing for her senior exhibition. Marie was in high school, the lead in the school play, considering colleges with strong theater programs. Bruce sat in the audience at Lillian's graduation. Flanked by his parents and brother, watching his eldest daughter accept her diploma, He thought about the scared 14-year-old who had finally broken down and told him the truth about her mother. He thought about how far she had come, how much she had overcome. After the ceremony, Lillian found Bruce in the crowd and hugged him tightly. "Thank you for saving us," she whispered. Bruce hugged her back, tears in his eyes. "You saved yourself, sweetheart. I just gave you the space to do it." That night, the whole family went out to celebrate at Lillian's favorite restaurant. They laughed and told stories and made plans for the future. No one mentioned Molly. She was a chapter in their lives that had closed, a painful memory that no longer had power over them. Bruce realized, sitting there surrounded by the people he loved most, that he had not just survived the destruction of his marriage. He had built something better from the ashes. He had created a family based on trust and communication and genuine love. His daughters knew they could come to him with anything. They knew he would always choose them, always protect them, always be there. And in the end, that was all that mattered. As for Molly, she eventually moved back to her hometown, closer to her aging parents. Sydney said she was working as a receptionist at a dental office, living in a small apartment, alone. She had dated a few men over the years, but nothing lasted. She had estranged herself from most of her family through her behavior and inability to take responsibility for her actions. Bruce felt a distant pity for her, the kind you feel for someone you used to know but no longer care about. Molly had thrown away a good life, a loving husband, 3 incredible daughters, all for a fleeting affair and an unwillingness to face her own demons. She would spend the rest of her life wondering what might have been if she had made different choices. But Bruce did not dwell on Molly's sad ending. He was too busy living his own full, joyful life. He was too busy being present for his daughter's triumphs and challenges. He was too busy building memories and traditions and a legacy of love that would outlast any pain they had endured. He had taken the broken pieces of his life and created something beautiful. And that was the real victory, the real success story. Not revenge, not vindication, but healing. Growth, hope. And every single day, Bruce chose to keep moving forward, to keep building, to keep loving his daughters with everything he had. Because in the end, that was what mattered. Not the betrayal, not the divorce, not the legal battles, but the life they built after. The life they were still building, one day at a time together. The Whispering Bee would say this: sometimes love is not about holding on. Sometimes love is about knowing when to let go, knowing when to walk away from what is destroying you, knowing when to choose yourself and the people who truly need you. Bruce chose his daughters, and in doing so, he gave them the greatest gift a parent can give: safety, stability, and unconditional love. Years later, when people asked Bruce about his divorce, he would say simply that it was the hardest thing he had ever done, but also the most important. Because it freed his daughters to become who they were meant to be, unencumbered by the weight of a mother who could not love them the way they deserved. And in the quiet moments, when Bruce watched his daughters living their best lives, thriving and happy and whole, he knew he had made the right choice. The only choice. The choice that saved them all.